In this video, we're going to talk about the layers of skin. So the outermost superficial layer is called the epidermis. The types of epithelial cells that make up this layer are called stratified squamous epithelium. They lack blood vessels, and so the deepest layer of the epidermis receives diffused blood from the blood vessels from the dermis. So really this area right here doesn't have much blood flow, but these cells from the first layer get diffused blood from out here. And this region is actually called the dermis. Alright, so blood vessels from the dermis diffuse their blood into the deepest layer of the epidermis. Now the cells in the stratum basale divide. The stratum basale is the deepest layer, is this one right here, as you can see, these cells. And then cells that are new are going to move toward the outside. They move outward, and then they fill with keratin, and they die as they move outward. So this outside layer, which is the stratum corneum, is made up of dead cells. All right. A few other things to keep in mind. Melanocytes are types of cells that produce melanin, and some of the functions of the epidermis generally are that it shields the underlying tissues from water loss, chemically harmful substances, and also pathogens like virus, bacteria, fungi. Now on to the dermis. The dermis is underneath the epidermis. It has dense connective tissue and areolar tissue. And it also has dermal blood vessels that regulate body temperature. So what that means is the epidermis didn't have any blood vessels, however the dermis does. These veins or arteries, when the body is really cold, they tend to shrink, so that keeps the heat within the blood in the body, and when you're really hot, they kind of constrict. They don't really constrict, they dilate, they become larger, so they let the heat inside the blood out. Now, nerve cell processes supply erector pili muscles and dermal glands. So there are obviously a lot of sweat glands, oil glands, and hair follicles that you're going to have within your dermis. Okay, those sweat glands are going to be innervated by your nerves, or little nerve endings. And then the erector pili muscles, each hair follicle, you know when your hair, you kind of get goosebumps where the hair moves like up this way. That's to kind of retain heat on the surface of the skin. And what makes the hair follicle actually move that way is this little small muscle called the erector pili muscle. It's very small. And the nerves that innervate it are not going to be consciously controlled. It's usually in response to like emotions or cold weather. This muscle is activated and you get goosebumps. Now, the last thing to keep in mind is that there is another skin layer down here called the hypodermis, and this essentially is just body fat, just fat tissue, or it's also called the subcutaneous layer. So that's what that means.